Trackhouse is doing everything right. That might seem like a very generic and kind of lofty position to say, but I think that it's honestly true. Trackhouse has been surprising everybody so far, and you can't do that by constantly screwing up. I see a couple pillars that they've built up on their team, whether it be ownership, the drivers, sponsorship, or different initiatives that really show what a new age concept this team is and how this team is built for a future much more than a lot of NASCAR teams are that are built more old school and are going to have to catch up. So starting off with, you have the ownership. Justin Marks, for me, is the biggest part of this. Justin Marks is a young owner and a former driver. He'll bring new ideas to the table, and I think that new way of thinking and the thinking that a driver would understand driving for him and he would understand mentoring a driver is something that is crucial and definitely missing from a lot of team owners nowadays. You do see this, for instance, with Jeff Gordon at Hendrick Motorsports, but if you look at Joe Gibbs Racing, for instance, there might be a bit of a disconnect between the ownership brass and the drivers. And I think that with that, he's going to understand both sides of it. He can explain to a driver why X sponsorship works with this, why they have to do a certain thing or go a certain way with the team, while also understanding what the driver is going through with whatever change it might be. I think it's something that honestly is a big benefit for them and is something that most teams won't be able to capitalize on at all in their time unless somebody new takes ownership. Then you also have Pitbull and the Trackhouse Entertainment Group. This brings in large funds and tons of extra PR. When you look at Pitbull, for instance, even though he is nowhere near the level of fame he was at his peak, he is still an international superstar. People all over the world know Pitbull, they know his music, they know his brand, and that is huge for expanding the reach of NASCAR. And I think with all of this, it's not that Pitbull defines the team. He's an asset to the team. This team is not starting off by just being a hype machine, similar to what 23XI kind of has been with Michael Jordan. Instead, it's focused on racing with the added hype of having a celebrity in the ownership model. And that, in my opinion, is a way if you're going to have somebody coming from the outside that's going to be influencing the way the team is, even in the smallest ways, that's the model you have to do it by, and Trackhouse has done this to perfection. And then you have Ty Norris, who has helped build up not one, but two teams before, with Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, as well as Michael Waltrip Racing. And while definitely there were things that came in the way, whether self-inflicted or not, that took those teams down, it's without a doubt that Ty Norris was a huge part of why those teams were as successful and winning as they were at their peak. Now, another reason why teams are winning at their peak is because of drivers. And this is where I think Trackhouse has that second major pillar that is going to build towards the future, starting with Daniel Suarez. Suarez, before he went to Trackhouse, was seen in a lot of ways as a driver who might have been washed up, maybe a bust even. A lot of people were looking at Suarez's career, running for teams, for instance, like Joe Gibbs Racing, and also for Stewart-Haas Racing when they were really good, and seeing minimal results from it. It wasn't honestly that hard to believe that Suarez might have been overhyped and just wasn't the driver that everyone thought he could be. He'd had a dismal time in 2020 running for underfunded teams, and it just really looked like he was going to have to take a step back. When Trackhouse signed Suarez, it wasn't some knock it out of the park deal, and in the first year, it wasn't like he set the world on fire either, but he was solid, and the team was building around him as a franchise driver. Something Suarez had never experienced being at Joe Gibbs Racing with superstars and Kevin Harvick being at Stewart-Haas Racing when he was there. But at only 31 years old heading into 2023, Suarez easily has 8 to 10 years left at a very high level, and I don't think he's reached his peak yet. He got a win in 2022. He broke through that glass ceiling on his career, and when you look at his season overall, he either had the highest number when it came to statistics measurable or nearly the highest measurable statistics of his career. In his 36 starts, he had his win, he had 6 top 5s and 13 top 10s. He led 280 laps, had a 16th place average finish, and he had 24 lead lap finishes while finishing 10th in points. All of these are highs, even though by most metrics, he was probably in lesser equipment than when he was at Trackhouse Racing and when he was at Joe Gibbs Racing for sure. Those are better teams, but he's in a better position, and Trackhouse has built around that better position, basically playing to Suarez's strengths. And it seems like from what he said, he views the team as a family, and he views the team on a very high level and in high regard. Even if he has short-term deals, he wants to be there, which is something insanely good when it comes to building a team. Suarez is proof that when you have a good culture in a team, a culture that empowers the drivers, a culture that pushes their drivers in different ways, but also is supportive, that you can have the best possible performances out of guys who otherwise wouldn't seem like it. And in my opinion, this has been the most stable situation he has had since he won his Xfinity Championship in 2016. And that stability is also shared with Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain, in my opinion, is the embodiment of NASCAR chaos nowadays. He's like the Joker of drivers. See, before he was racing in the number 1 Chevrolet for Trackhouse, Chastain showed tons of talent and promise and upside. He raced for JD, for instance. For many, that was the first time they noticed who Chastain was. When he was taking a team that would run in the back half of the top 20 if they even got there, and he would run it up into the top 10. I remember being at Chicagoland in the mid-2010s and seeing that car up there thinking, wow, it's running fast for a lap car, looking at the scoreboard and seeing he's like 7th or 8th, racing guys that are going for Joe Gibbs Racing, for Roush at the time, for JRM. Ross Chastain showed tons of talent. And then when he went up to the Cup Series racing for Ganassi, even though Ganassi had a good driver in Kurt Busch, Chastain wasn't a slouch. He raced pretty well and was fairly competitive in the last half of his season there. So ultimately, when Ganassi got bought up by Trackhouse and he became a driver with them, he also became a championship contender. In 2022, it was really the coming out season for the Melon Man. In his 36 starts, he had 2 wins, 15 top 5s, 21 top 10s, almost 700 laps led, and a 13th place average. Oh yeah, he made the Final Four as well, finishing 2nd in the points, meaning he was part of Trackhouse, having both cars finish in the top 10 in the standings. A pretty impressive feat for a team that didn't exist only 2 years prior. And with that being said, he is only 30 years old, so he has a good 10 years or so left to race at his prime, and he's probably only going to get better. Right now, his biggest weakness is his biggest strength with aggression, which, if harnessed correctly, has proven to be a very good winning formula in NASCAR, both past and present. And overall, this team is young at the core. They have solid talent, they have solid sponsorship, they are built for the old model as well as the new model in NASCAR. And when you look at their third team, Project 91, well, this initiative is something that only other NASCAR teams could dream of. It brings international attention and drivers to NASCAR. It brings a spotlight on the sport, starting with Kimi Räikkönen last year at Watkins Glen. And it can open NASCAR up to the broader racing world, whether it be for IndyCar drivers, F1, any other kind of drivers, any major series drivers, any drivers around the world that want to dip their toes into NASCAR can do so, and it opens up the talent pool in a major way, and probably the sponsorship pool as well. The team overall is open to changing the game and changing in general. This is a very fluid but also solid team. Solid in the sense that they stick together, but fluid in the sense they can adapt to the sport quicker than other teams can. And I think they're going to be ahead of these older teams in the long run. These older teams that are living off the old model need to change. And with the older people running them compared to the way that Trackhouse is, they're at a disadvantage long term. I think they might take a step back in 2023, though, but that shouldn't discourage people from looking at their bright future. This is a team built for the long term, and they've had early success right away. So if they don't have a team make the Final Four, or if, say, Suarez does miss the playoffs because of a very stacked field, I don't think it's a reason to have concern. I think this team, like I said, is built to be a championship-winning organization for decades to come. But with that, I want to ask you what you think. What are your thoughts on Trackhouse's success so far and how they're going to be in the future? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support, and be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly Podcast tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Danny B Talks channel. We'll talk a ton about Trackhouse in that one. So until next time, have a good one.